Hey, welcome everybody. It's Wednesday. Time for Sci-Fi Distilled. Welcome back, Mary Beth. How are you?
Hello. How goes? So
Hello.
it's still Sci-Fi Distilled the Road Show.
Roadshow. I'm still in Indiana.
Still in
Still in
Indiana.
Indiana. Still same
I go.
place. Yes. So anyway, so just to make things easier on everybody, we're continuing with our Star Trek kind of themed month, I guess
A
it
little
is.
bit, yeah.
So we're kind of talking about the different captains and some of the questionable maybe decisions they made that certainly were not Starfleet by the book orders. So yeah,
Yeah.
so we're going to kind of talk about. We're going to try to hit as many as we can,
As
different
many
topics. But
captains as we can, because they
certainly,
all they all did a little
they
something
all did a
something.
little shenanery.
Shenanigans.
So hey, Jeff and Bill, thanks for joining us as
I guess.
always. Um, but before I think we have some news. I
Yeah,
think we
let
have
me fly through the news because we got a lot to talk about tonight. 3 decades after squaring off against a T-Rex, Sam Neill is ready to face off with a pair of much, much, much bigger monsters. He has joined the cast of Godzilla X Kong #3. I've seen the first two. They're okay. They're fun. They're whatever. Don't jump up out of your chair. We do not expect this thing, tentatively titled Godzilla X Kong 3. How creative. We do not expect this thing to be due in theaters until March of 2027. Moving on, the much discussed Harry Potter TV series has announced a bunch of its casting. We can look for John Lithgow as Dumbledore and Nick Frost as Hagrid. You guys all know who John Lithgow is. Nick Frost, you should know. He was featured alongside Simon Pegg in Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz. This is a powerhouse cast. All the other ones they announced all were like BAFTA winner and like Emmy nominee and Golden Globe winner, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a powerhouse cast, but will it calm down some of the debate and controversy around this show and win over the audience? I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of boycotting going on with Harry Potter,
There is
specifically because of J.K. and her very bigoted comments.
his her
And a
yeah.
lot of people are claiming that because the original cast of Harry Potter opposed her so strongly publicly, that's why they're rebooting with new people. So that's the rumor I heard. Whether it's true or not, I don't know.
I don't know
Uh,
either. I
but I
don't
don't
know the
know if
deal.
I'll be partaking in this just because I don't want to give her any more money.
I'm with you. I'm right with you. I don't want to support her, but I try to mentally separate even from the movies, the cast and crew. That's hundreds of people, none of whom, many of whom would have completely
Yeah,
different opinions.
that's okay, but I mean, this is like I always say that because Joss Whedon fell into the Me Too thing, unfortunately, and I still love Firefly because of
I
those
do
reasons you
too.
just said.
I do
But
too.
Firefly was already done, and then we found out about
Yeah,
his
he
stuff.
was on.
This
No,
is
Buffy,
kind of
Firefly
like,
and Buffy were both done. Yeah.
yeah, but I'm just saying they're done. They're, you know what I'm saying? So they already had their
I don't know.
fan base. So it's like, to me, to go back after she's went and was very publicly and very disgustingly the things that she said.
Yes.
I find it difficult to go back to that Harry Potter well and give her more of my time and money.
My time and money.
So,
Yeah, I'm right with you. I don't want to. I don't know, man. I got to think about this a little bit more, but we'll see. We'll see. Moving on, I will drop the link. Nautilus. So I don't know if you guys remember, I reported a while back that Disney had made the difficult decision to dump a bunch of a bunch of projects. One was Willow, one was the Spiderwick Chronicles, and one was a show called Nautilus based on 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. It was Captain Nemo and those guys. Interestingly, it found a home in the UK. The UK audiences got to see it back in October on UK Prime Video, but we didn't. Well, it has finally found a home on AMC and AMC Plus. It will be released on June 29. It will air weekly before concluding with a 2-episode season finale on August 17th, and I will drop a link to that trailer in the chat. Moving on, Wednesday.
I've already watched it.
Who
I've
already
already seen
watched
Nautilus.
it?
It
The
was on
TV show?
Nautilus TV shows on Canuckavision.
Oh, is it really? Because they
I
pulled it
already
from
watched
you.
it. It was actually pretty good. I liked it.
Was it good?
Yeah, I liked it.
I was wondering. I was looking at the trailer and I was kind of wondering if it was anything. All right. Well,
Yeah,
now
the guy from Discovery, right? What's his name? Is on. He's the captain.
actually, I'm not sure who the cast is, but yeah.
Well, the guy that was
Oh, yes, it
Shazam or
is.
whatever. I can never remember. Yeah, but he
Yeah,
was on
I
the
know.
first 2 seasons of Disco. There, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. He's
All right,
he's
cool.
Nemo.
That's cool.
So
All right. Moving on, Wednesday season 3 has been given the green light to start filming. It will film this November. All of this happening as they haven't even given us a premiere date for season 2 yet. Kind of like Stranger Worlds. Also already filming the next season, and we don't have a date for the next season we expect out. Season 2 will introduce high-profile additions, including Steve Buscemi as the new Nevermore Academy principal and Billie Piper in an as yet undisclosed role. Billie Piper, you know who she is. She played Rose on Doctor Who. Series star Jenna Ortega, who's also serving as the executive producer, revealed the series would shift focus away from teen romance and go into gothic suspense and psychological drama. And you know what? I'm here for that. As long as it kind of keeps that sort of quirky Wednesday feel about it, you do whatever you want, Jenna Ortega. And finally, tonight, Black Mirror season 7 is released, all out now, I believe. And if you liked season 4's USS Callister, the famous Star Trek spoof, not spoof,
yeah,
but
it was a disturbing one, quite frankly.
Yeah, very disturbing. You might want to check out season 7 because there is a sequel episode. It is called USS Callister Into Infinity. It's the 6th episode of season 7. It has a runtime, guys, of 90 minutes. It is a true television movie. Actually, it's a true movie. The first one, in case you were curious, had a runtime of 76 minutes. It's because creator Charlie Booker and director Toby Haynes were absolutely aware of what they had created. They created a true sci-fi premise, and they were very aware it could become a series or movie. They talked about making it into a series, like a USS Callister series, which would have been fascinating. But they went for this movie format, I guess, because they were still working within the confines of Black Mirror. Haynes is quoted as saying, "We made the best sci-fi pilot for a show that doesn't exist." So after the one went off to work on Andor, they came back, wrote this thing, and then Toby Haynes went off to direct the Star Trek prequel movie that we don't want. So we'll see. Yes, they would love to see it as a trilogy, so maybe there'll be one more after this. I'm going to drop a great interview in the Hollywood Reporter. I will drop a link to that in the comments if you want to learn a little bit more about the USS Callister. I loved that episode. Rizzo, you saw that episode, right?
Oh yeah. Like I said, it was good but disturbing.
Very disturbing, but true sci-fi. Like true. Like it was almost better than Star Trek in a way because it truly delved into some interesting conundrums, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I didn't really remember it that way, but
what do you remember?
Well, I don't want to give us spoilers away, but it was about a nerd that had gone pretty much psychotic.
Yeah, fair enough.
And was trapping people in this world for his own gratification. And basically turned them into slaves.
He did make them into slaves, but they fought their way back out at the end. Spoiler.
Yes. At the end there was but the whole concept was kind of messed up. So anyway, we shall see.
All right, what are we drinking tonight?
What are we drinking tonight? A little simple one. It's called the Captain's Cauldron. It's Captain Morgan Simple Syrup and Lime Juice. Can't get any more simpler than that. So I don't know. I haven't tried it. Could be good. Usually can't go wrong with Captain Morgan,
Yeah.
So basic stuff people have in their cupboards. So nothing exotic in this one. So anyway. All right. So moving on. Yeah, right. There, Sarge. Shades of WandaVision, he said. Similar, sort of. Well, we're talking about the USS Callister episode.
Kind of, yeah.
So I don't know how you want to start with Kirk and his shenanigans. We only picked out. Kirk has a ton.
Kirk has a million.
There's the man was a menace.
The man was a menace.
The man was a menace. That was.
The man was a menace.
The temporal agency.
Dr.
There. The
Alexander.
man was a menace. Well, I think let's start with let's search for Spock. And
Okay.
basically he defied Starfleet orders. Now, I think we all can agree he had, at least in his mind, a good reason, because he went to save Spock.
He wanted his friend back.
He wanted his friend back, and he wasn't going to do anything. Remember, it wasn't until Sarek came and said, "Where's his Katra?" basically, and then they figured out that it was in McCoy. So he was really saving two people. Not only was he saving Spock, but he had to save McCoy, because he had to get Spock out of McCoy, right? Because he was going to go crazy with Spock in his brain.
That's right. But what was the counterbalance to that?
Well, the counterbalance was that he was defying Starfleet orders, and he was basically going to get court-martialed, which he did ultimately. But he stole a very expensive piece of equipment. Now, granted, they were going to decommission it anyway, but he basically stole the Enterprise, right? Which they took on later episodes of other shows. It became just a normal thing you do.
Yeah, must be Tuesday. We're stealing the ship again. Yeah, you're right. The article that I was pulling ideas from it says, while his loyalty to Spock is admirable, his actions cause the major powers of the galaxy to look on the Federation with suspicion for testing what might have been a doomsday weapon. I don't remember that Genesis.
Starfleet never looked at it that way. That was the Klingons.
No, it says the major powers of the galaxy. So I'm assuming Romulan, Klingon, Vulcan.
Yeah, we never really did get the Romulans' opinion, but we assumed that they would probably look at it as the same way the Klingons did.
None of us did. You see it as as something that could be mistaken as a doomsday weapon? Did you see it that way?
Well, yeah, I mean, because McCoy basically says that because he said, well, what would happen if there was somebody living on this planet? And Spock very, very cold and calculating. It would destroy such life in view in favor of its new matrix.
Yes.
And when McCoy goes, well, now we can make we used to what Genesis took 7 days. Now we can do it in 1 hour.
7 hours, yeah.
So yes, they definitely touched on the fact that this thing could destroy.
Okay, you're right.
the planet and then remake it. And then the Klingons reiterated that, saying, yeah, we could just drop this thing on a Klingon world, and in a couple hours we have a Federation world.
Okay, so put yourself in Captain Kirk's shoes. Would you make the same call?
Well, I mean, with Kirk, it was more. I think if had Spock not been Kirk would have never gone to Genesis planet had Spock not died or his body wasn't there. So the only reason he defied all the laws was to save both his friends.
Right? In search for Spock
and to save McCoy, because McCoy wouldn't have survived if he couldn't get Spock's Katra out of his head.
Yeah.
So
maybe they shouldn't have shot the coffin to land on the planet in the first place.
Well, I mean, they did that on purpose because remember originally Nimoy didn't want to do another movie. That's why he wanted Spock to die.
It was an added scene,
and then they added it in to say maybe kind of. So, and my thing is, you think Spock would have had the other thing that kind of always cracked me up is, Sarek shows up and he's like, what did you do? Basically, why did you shoot my son's body into the sun or whatever? Apparently that's not the Klingon or the Vulcan way, rather. Wouldn't Spock have had that, with a man that had everything so meticulously, everything laid out in his life? Wouldn't he have a last will and testament kind of thing saying, and here's what you do with my body, and you don't shoot it into the sun?
Yeah. When you join Starfleet, it seems like you might want to have one of those.
Especially since he took the time to go, remember.
Yeah, exactly.
So that aside, yeah, I mean, so yes, would I have done it? I mean, I'm not Kirk, so to ask what I would do is irrelevant. But yeah, I could totally see Kirk doing this because his friendship for those two would outweigh anything beyond.
Yeah,
I
would have done it differently.
I mean, he was aware that he was probably going to ruin his career. Then he would never sit in the seat again.
Yeah.
And had the whale thing not come up conveniently, he would have been drummed right out
The
of the
whale
service.
thing.
Well, the whale thing was convenient, because he saved the planet again. So they're like,
Oh,
well,
and then they stole
how do
the
we
Klingons.
court-martial this guy? He just saved the planet again.
We're done stealing Enterprise. Now we're gonna steal Bird of Prey, or not Bird of Prey, Battle Cruiser, whatever it was that they stole. All right.
Well, no, the Klingon one they had to steal because they were going to be that or sit on the planet.
I don't remember.
Besides,
I just remember. Everybody remember where we parked.
Klingons. You don't steal from your enemy. You just,
You just acquire.
You acquire it, right? It's yours now. It's called So, So I mean, that was the joke. Of course, and they saw the irony. They named the Klingon ship. They renamed it the Bounty.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
They knew exactly what they were doing.
They knew what they were doing.
They were mutinying against Starfleet. So that's why they were hiding on Vulcan, and the Vulcans hid them because of what they did for Spock. So
yes. Dennis Chevalier is saying that Spock was always messing with McCoy even after death. Yeah, he probably was.
Yeah, and I think McCoy makes that comment even in death. I still, he's still tormenting me, kind of thing.
Sarge, it's reappropriate. Yeah, or
there you go. There you go. So all's fair in love and war. They weren't at war with the Klingons technically. No. That was a rogue. Krug, whatever his name was kind of a rogue Klingon.
Yeah. All right. What else did Kirk do? Because he did a lot.
So that one, I think the other one is we're going back to original series, which is the episode The Apple, where we had a society that was stable, although it stagnant, which is what they always seem to use as an excuse to muck. But this is the one with Vol, the big lizard head that was, but Vol was taking care of these people were essentially happy. They didn't seem like they were miserable.
This was primitive natives with white hair. They all had white hair.
Yeah, had what's his name in it? Hutch. Yeah. Or Starsky.
Oh, yeah.
I always get mixed up with the blonde one. Anyway. Yeah, so basically now I think here's my question. Would Kirk have destroyed Vol if Vol wasn't trying to destroy the Enterprise?
No, well, I don't know why he would, because Vol was not malevolent to the people of the planet.
That would have been a direct violation of the Prime Directive.
Their needs were met. So really there was no reason for him to go down and interact with those people at all. Vol shouldn't have been messing with the Enterprise. That's true, but couldn't they have dealt with that from up above?
Well, I mean, he did. Remember, he told Scotty, he's like, do whatever you have to do. Crack. That's where we got. By the way, that's the episode where everybody got a little hint that the saucer could separate from the rest of the ship, because he said, crack out of there would drop the nacelles and get that shit. Whatever you have to do to get that ship out of there. And Scotty said, I guess you're going to have to fire me, because he had done everything he could and thrown the whole kitchen sink at everything, and he still couldn't get away from the thing. But it's always funny because every time they're caught, whether it's Vol or Apollo, they always have phaser power left over. And I'm like, why did remember when we were talking about
phasers are on a separate dilithium crystal? Maybe they have their own crystal.
You remember we were talking about what was it, Pacific Rim, and we said always lead with the sword.
Yeah.
I think you need to lead with the phasers. Just lead with the phasers,
people. Just destroy. But the thing was, they couldn't just destroy. But did they know at that point? Because if they had just up and destroyed Vol, and they would have gotten away, but then the people of the planet would have been screwed. But they know at that time that Vol took care of those people?
I think they were. Well, it was symbiotic in a way, because remember, they were somehow feeding him.
Yeah, they were feeding it.
With their own bodily energy or something. Remember, they'd go in his mouth and stand there for a minute and then walk away. I don't know how he was feeding on them, but somehow, but he was, but yeah. So the question is, it was a definite Prime Directive violation, because by the Prime Directive, you're supposed to sacrifice your life and the life of your crew to not interfere, and yet he was like, screw you, you're not going to kill my people, and he was using the excuse that, well, it's a stagnant society. So, yeah. And they were attacking them. So
they were fine. Kirk messed up. He should not have messed with those people.
Well, why were they even on that planet? I mean, they clearly
But
must
how
have.
did they get there
They
with
should
that
have
computer in
never.
the
Here's
first
the
place?
thing: they should have never beamed down in the first place, because they had to know that. How did they not? They have all the things. They couldn't tell there was life signs on that planet in the culture.
Exactly.
So why
Exactly.
were they beaming down? If they acted like they didn't know anybody was there.
So if you're going to make the argument, if you're going to say, well, yeah, how did they know anyone? That's a great question. If you're going to say, eliminating Vol allowed them to self-determine, which you would think, oh, that's great. Yes, they should have had, like, Vol kept them from self. They couldn't determine anything, but they couldn't decide anything for themselves. Now they had the ability to decide things for themselves. That's great. No, Kirk made that decision for them without their consent. Like
right. They didn't have a choice at that point, because once Vol was out of the once Vol was out of the picture, they had no choice at this point.
Yeah.
They had to and keep going the way you're going. You'll find out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they'll figure it out.
You'll figure it out. You'll find out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't know if you guys agree, disagree. I haven't heard really seeing people just talking about
phasers. My phasers.
We're off on phaser talk and where they're getting the power.
And that's good, guys. We like it.
That's fine. That's fine. I think, Pacific Rim, I think Star Trek just needs to lead with the phasers.
Lead with the phasers or photon torpedoes. I don't know. So, the phasers are in banks, and then therefore have a charge. Yeah, maybe.
Well, I think it's always, like I always say, it's just how the writers wanted it.
It's how they wanted it that week.
They wanted it to come out. Next week. So they always have a little bit of powder left for the phasers, Captain. I got one bank charged already. Remember that was I got one that was on the Constellation. So all right, moving on. Last one for Kirk, and this was going back to the movies, and this is one that you had brought up in Star Trek VI: Undiscovered Country. Kirk's lack of empathy for the Klingons in their situation. In his comment, Kirk of Spock saying, they're dying, and he said, let them die. But again, Kirk is human, and he's had nothing but trouble from these people.
True. And
so I kind of don't begrudge the man, and yet he went through with it anyway, biting his tongue the whole time, tried to do the right thing, regardless. So in this situation, I don't think he did the wrong thing. He might not have empathy, but I think it was justified not having empathy. But he still followed orders. He didn't go to the Admiralty and say, F you, I'm not doing this. I hate these SOBs. Find somebody else.
The argument for this one, on the one hand, they had just killed David. So,
well, we don't know how much time passed between Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, we're not really sure. Okay, so they didn't.
I would say it's a few years at least.
But it was on his list of reasons.
Oh yeah, no question about it. It was probably top of his.
But if you're Starfleet, do you really just stand aside and watch passively while an entire race, like that's an entire race?
Oh yes. In fact, we've established it again with Star Trek Picard, where the whole Federation looked the other way. The Romulans.
That's right.
So yes, we've established.
We're going to hit on it when we talk about maybe Janeway or somebody else in the other section. Somebody else, Janeway. Janeway stands aside. Janeway is an accessory to specieside. So yeah, I guess there is a precedent for it. But is it really? I mean, is that really what you want?
But I mean, the Federation as a whole was saying, look, I think they were looking at an opportunity with the Klingon situation, because they were always a nuisance enemy. They're saying, look, they can't afford their war machine anymore. They have to put resources to saving their planet. So we're going to help them.
Hi, Chris.
In much the way that the Americans went over to Europe in World War II and helped rebuild Germany and rebuild Japan, because it was in our best interest to do so. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't just empathy, but I think it was also the best
sheer Starfleet professionalism,
right? But it also
he should put his personal feelings aside, like he lectured that guy on the bridge.
And he did he was pissed off with Spock for even suggesting that he does this.
Yeah,
that's where his anger was more focused at Spock, and in general just what he had to do. But he did it. You know what I'm saying? He still went out and met the chancellor. He still tried to have him for dinner, which was a bad idea, obviously. You know what I'm saying? And even in the end, he still saved. He was the plot, which was even more kind of disturbing, that there was Federation admirals and stuff involved in this plot to start a war, because that's what they always wanted. I mean, that was the more messed up part of that movie.
Yeah, that's true.
When you think about it from a Starfleet
That's
standpoint. So I don't know.
Fair
So what do you guys think about it?
Yeah, I mean, guys, what would you have done? Put yourself in Kirk's shoes. Do you suppress your personal feelings and do the job like a professional, or do you, like, where are you at with this? And while you're all typing, I'm going to point out a few little orders, just a couple of little orders that Kirk broke. Like, for example, in Amok Time, the order was to go to Altair 6. And Kirk was like, nah, I'm going to stop at Vulcan first. Like, direct order. He was like, I'll get there eventually. Galileo 7, the order was bring needed medical supplies to, I don't remember the planet, I'm sorry. And Kirk was like, I'm going to hang out real quick and find my friends. And then when I finally leave, I'll go as slowly as possible. Mirror.
The thing with that was he was still going to make it on time. He was just.
Was he? I don't remember. They were calculating. I remember them going, if we leave now at this speed, we'll get there by.
I think the implication wasn't he wasn't going to be late.
I hope that's true, because I remember it was medical supplies, and I was like, "Well, are people dying?"
Right, like, because they were. I think they were perishable. I think was the problem.
Yeah. Oh, maybe it was the supplies that were perishable. Maybe. Yeah.
They were perishable.
One other example, even in the Mirror Universe, the order in the Mirror Universe was annihilate the Hawkins, and Kirk was like, "Nah, I'm gonna hang out and fix this whole universe first." Like, whatever the order is, Kirk's just like.
Well, again, that was kind of. He was, him helping Spock, he was definitely interfering, but is that a prime directive because he went and told Spock about the Tantalus field device, rather, but he was like, he went, remember that whole line when he went to Spock, he's like, how, the Empire, he's like, it'll last like another 250 years or something. And he goes, it's a waste. Basically, all these people are going to die. And it's not going to last anyway. So, in every revolution, there's one man.
There's one man. Yeah, I do love that speech, though. I really do. Find a reason, make it stick. Yeah. One last one. In a private little war, the order was do not contact the inhabitants of this planet. And Kirk was like, I'm going to call them, and then I'll note in my log that I violated the order. Right? I'll just write it in the log.
Well, I mean, private little war was because he had already hung out with them. I mean, he didn't, of course, they didn't know. Tari was the only one out of the Hill people that knew he was not from that planet, that he was an alien, basically. But I think in Kirk's standpoint, once he saw the Klingons were, it became, again, that was a Cold War was started between.
In the meantime, they have answered our question, what would you do if you are Kirk? Bill is saying, what are you saying, Bill? It's about the Iron Curtain in the USSR falling in the 80s. Sarge says military guy, duty comes first. Yeah, that's true. Duty is first, unless the order is illegal. Dennis Chevalier is saying Kirk was a rebel. Dr. Alexander is saying duty and honor have always been Kirk's foundation. That's true. Chris says he would break the rules when lives were at stake. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. Who else? What other captains do we have, Rizzo?
Okay, the other one, I think it was another one, which is Sisko, and particularly during the Dominion War and the episode Into the Pale Moonlight.
Well, and this was
this was the one where he had to fake. He was trying to get the Romulans on board, and he had to fake the information, and he knew what he was doing was illegal. It was unethical, but they were desperate. And this is one of the reasons. This was one of the episodes among many that made Sisko one of my favorite of all time captains.
Same.
Sisko to me was the most real captain of them all, in the sense that you could tell he not only had to make decisions that just had he was between a rock and a hard place. You know what I'm saying? He was damned if he did, damned if he didn't. And he was just looking to win the war, end the war, as quickly as possible and save as many lives as possible. And yeah, he had to step out of Starfleet's, shining reputation, so to speak, to do that. And I think I 100% agree with what he did. And he knew he was struggling with it the whole time. He struggled with it. It wasn't an easy decision at all. So in this sense, I think he was justified. And I think the fact that he was torn up about it and struggled with the decision even after he made it.
Yeah. His ending comment of this episode is, can I live with, what does he say?
I don't know.
I was right in my head a minute ago. Something like, can I live with, Yeah. Sarge is saying Garak was a badass. I think Sisko was a badass in this episode. Yeah, this introduces us into a much more realistic kind of look at these situations. This makes Kirk and Kirk's decisions look very black and white by comparison, because Sisko is juggling Cardassians, Bajorans, the Prophets, what this means to people, the Starfleet, the Jem'Hadar. Like he's just juggling. Like there's a lot of moving parts, and it is all constantly moving. And he's trying to navigate a very delicate, I'll say diplomatic, but they're trying to push things in the right way to save millions. Like if war really breaks out, they need to save millions.
They desperately needed the Romulans to come in,
and they needed the Romulans to join on the right side.
Yeah,
I say this is much more realistic because this is more like what actually happens maybe in real life. Like things go down, So I love this episode. I'm putting myself in Sisko's shoes, and you know what? I hope I would have had the guts to do the exact same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100% with it. And this is what I've always said. One of the things I don't have on my list is any Picard things. And I'm not saying that Picard didn't have some questionable.
He had a few,
but I always said that the one thing that always bothered me about Next Gen was they always had the
competence.
He never really had a lot of these tough decisions. There was always like, okay, this is really the obvious right decision. You had to do it. May not have been perfect, and everybody wasn't necessarily happy with it, but it was always kind of worked out that way.
Yeah.
Whereas this was just bad all around. I mean, he just was like taking the lesser of two evils, and they were both evil. So,
and I loved it.
That's what I always liked about DS9 in general, especially those last, the last like 4 seasons. They really, really got dark, and they got gritty, and they were more realistic to me what war would be like. They were trying to still wasn't very realistic in many terms, but they were trying to. They showed you a lot of episodes that people were dying, people were being maimed, people, PTSD issues, that it wasn't just, we go pew, 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 and move on and have the laughing on the bridge episode, at the end, like we always did on all these other episodes.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. It made the other episodes look black and white by comparison. This was shades of gray, and I loved it. So much more realistic. I loved it.
So that was my only Sisko. I know there was other Sisko ones, but that was the only one we really pulled out.
That was the one we were going to talk about. Bill is talking about. There was one that he was after Michael Eddington, and he did destroy it. That episode, I can tell you what it was. Not Pale Moonlight. Was it for the uniform?
Well, Eddington, didn't he end up being Section 31 or something in the end or something like that? Or
was he? I don't remember.
Also, yeah. So the other thing was, this is the first, DS9 was the first time we were introduced to Section 31.
Yes, with Eddington. So, yes.
And Section 31 again was kind of a little deep dark secret that we never knew about. From Starfleet, obviously they created it. I mean, it wasn't there in TOS.
But we didn't know.
But I mean, basically, it was like their black ops. That wasn't following all the wonderful non-interference rules and doing all the right things, and
Bill, he destroyed the planet's ecosystem, and said, yes, that is technically a war crime. Sisko did a war crime.
Yeah.
Dr. Alexander said, I'm not sure Sisko knew that Garak would commit murder. I don't remember exactly the plot point. Did he know that Garak would kill that and frame the Garak killed an assassin? He killed a Romulan senator and then framed the Dominion.
Yeah, Garak had pretty much
Garak did a lot.
Well, he had pretty much shown his colors by this point.
Yeah, we knew.
He was
we
not
knew
just
he
a
was.
humble tailor.
Not Tinker Tailor.
And we all know by this point that there was very deep. He was obviously in the Kardashian.
He was in the black.
He was in their version
Obsidian,
of CIA or whatever.
Obsidian, whatever. Yeah.
The Obsidian Order.
Obsidian Order.
Which basically made Black Order essentially.
Yeah. Garrick is one of my favorite characters. Like, I loved Garrick. I mean, I hated him, but I loved him. You know who I hated? I hated Kai Wynn, but I loved Garrick.
Everybody hated Kai Wynn. I mean, that she was
the ultimate Karen.
She was a character designed to be hated, basically. No, I like Garrick. I like Garrick because I like the way Garrick used to mess with Bashir constantly. Garrick was actually a really good character.
Garrick was a fabulous character. Yeah,
because he was just so you knew. Eventually, they almost because at the end they pretty much revealed his whole deal, and how he was pretty much drummed out of the Obsidian Order. Kind of. Basically, I think it was he was made like a made like a scapegoat.
Connections,
but he had his
he was still shifty enough to where you're like, which side is this guy on? You know what I mean? And he was pleasant and smiley while doing it, which just killed me. And a great tailor. He was a good tailor. He'd actually do the tailoring, which kind of blew my mind.
But it's so funny because you could tell it was killing him. Like he was doing it. But it was like, that's the last thing he ever wanted to do.
Like it was an act. Really, he was like, he had all. All right, so we need to move on, but we need to move on. But I think this is, of all the ones we're going to talk about tonight, I feel like this is my number one favorite example of a captain going rogue.
With what? With Cisco and Pale Moonlight?
Cisco and Pale Moonlight. Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't. Yeah. He's definitely gone rogue, but I think it's. It's not. He wasn't. It wasn't a very Federation / Starfleet solution.
No, he wasn't very Starfleet-esque about it.
It was not very Starfleet. So I think that's where we're going with that one. All right, moving on. This one we go to Star Trek Enterprise with Captain Archer. This is season 3, the episode called Damage. Those of you that are not familiar with this is really another one that's kind of when Enterprise started to get kind of dark. So basically, this is during the Xindi arc. They're out in the Delphic expanse there, or whatever it is, and they're damaged. They needed a warp core part, which always cracks me up because no matter what race you run into, the parts are interchangeable. We can't even change.
We can pull something off that ship and just plug it into our.
We can't even change parts within our cars, let alone
I can't go from Toyota to Subaru.
Right, it's just funny. But anyway, so they needed a part. They ran into these folks. They helped them initially, and then they realized they had the part that they needed to fix their warp core. Remember, during the Xindi arc, the Enterprise was out there trying to get to the Xindi master weapon that was going to eventually go to Earth and destroy it. So he was getting desperate.
That was their ultimate goal.
Yeah, Archer was getting desperate. They were the only ship they really had to do this. So if they were taken off the board, that was pretty much game over. So originally, Archer tried to bargain with these people for the part, and they said no. We needed to get home too. If we give you your part, it would take us 30 years to get home. Without the warp drive, blah, blah, blah. And Archer lets him go initially, if I remember correctly, but then he decides, no, we can't do this. And then he basically takes the part. And he basically, this you could tell was a struggle for him because this is not how a Starfleet officer, now granted, this is before the Prime Directive, but they still had a certain military code and a code of ethics. And they would always want to help people, not be essentially pirates. So he basically took the part. He took the part, gave him as much stuff as he could, sent him on their way with the promise that once he completed his mission with the Xindi, he would come find them because they're going to be 30 years flying in the same direction and give them their part back, or fix their ship.
And to the best of your memory, 2 things. Does he go back for them? I don't remember.
They never. No, I can honestly say, if somebody knows different, then let me know. But at least as far as the television show, unless they addressed it in a novel or something, which I don't think they ever did. We don't know. They don't say that he didn't, but they don't say that he did.
The other question I had was that and this is a minor detail, but maybe you remember because you remember the show better than I do. Did Archer say we need to get to Earth to stop? We need to save our planet? Did he actually explain why?
Yeah, I believe he did. Yeah, he did. He was explaining,
and they still were like, no, you can't have our warp coil.
They're like, but the guy was like, look, I'm sorry about your situation, but I got to look out for my people. Just as Archer would have done, you know what I'm saying? They would have done the same thing. Like, look, I know, I feel bad for you, but I got my own people problems to deal with. So I'm sure that he explained that to him. But the question always is, did he go back? I would have liked to have seen a mention of it in a later episode.
If anybody knows,
the crew was really kind of like couldn't believe he did it. You know, like I remember his own crew was like, "Yeah, are you serious?" Because there was another earlier episode where he almost killed a guy that he was trying to get information from.
But
he tortured a guy.
There was a little subplot going on with him where he was kind of like losing it. No. And we were all starting to wonder about his. No, maybe not. Maybe I'm mixing up something. Never mind.
Not specifically. He did torture another guy for information trying to find the Xindi homeworld, or the guy was a Xindi, because remember now the Xindi were 6 or 7 different races, all from one planet. So they had different. So anyway, they ran into one guy and he basically tortured him. And he did get the coordinates, of course, but they found out that the Xindi homeworld had been destroyed eons ago or decades ago, or whatever ago. And they had all just kind of spread out all over the area, the Delphic expanse or whatever. Delphic.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Great episode. Really well written. But yeah, the crew was we were the audience, the viewing audience was shocked. I remember being like,
yeah, that was a surprising episode for Enterprise. Like I said, they really, the writers really took a left turn there away from Star Trek as we know it. And I think it was okay to do, because we weren't dealing with the Federation. We're not dealing with Prime Directive at this point. And we're basically in a situation where we are in a wartime we were attacked, very 9/11-ish. We don't know why, really, you know what I'm saying? And because remember, this was only a few years after 9/11, so it was pretty much kind of a sneak attack on Earth. My always thing cracked me up with the Xindi is, why would you unzip your fly by going and testing your weapon on the planet that you're eventually going to go destroy? And that was always the biggest criticism.
The writers needed to demonstrate that they were.
Yeah, you could have tested it on any planet that we would have never known.
Or the moon.
We would have known, and the big one would have shown up and blown the planet up, and that would be the end of it.
I keep forgetting that this is like kind of I keep forgetting that this is pre-Kirk. You know why? Because it came. But so this would have been. There's no Prime Directive really. There's no Federation. I mean, we're working with T'Pol and the Vulcans, sort of, but they don't.
The Vulcans did have the non-interference rule for themselves.
Yeah,
and she kept saying, we really recommend this because we've run into they learn from our mistakes, because clearly somewhere in the past they had made that screw up where they tried to get involved in somebody's society.
Exactly. But for humans, it's still kind of the wild, wild west. I'd kind of forgotten about that.
Yeah,
putting ourselves in Archer's shoes, would you have done that? I don't know if I would have.
If the fate of the entire planet was, and I really felt that this was the only option, I might do it.
But there were no other. What other information did they have? Did they know they could get there in time to stop it?
No, the thing was, if they didn't get the part, they were done. There was no, because it was essentially like you'd have to go impulse.
Years,
There's no way they would have done anything. That was the end. They were done if they couldn't get the part. Could Columbia maybe have come and swung in with something had they gotten a message to them? Who knows? I mean,
they couldn't replicate that. We didn't have replicators yet.
Yeah, they didn't really have replicators. So could they have written it in a way that so it turned out goody two shoes and they didn't have to do it? Like he said, okay, well, that's it. We're giving up on the whole planet just because we don't want to inconvenience these people. You know what I'm saying? I think his solution made more sense and more realistic. They could have said, oh, well, we got a thing off Columbia is going to come and give us the part.
Yeah.
Or another warp capable ship.
Exactly.
or
Yeah,
a Klingon, I mean a Vulcan ship or something.
Vulcan ship. Yeah. Jeff Rubel was saying if anyone would have returned the warp coil, it would have been Archer. Jeff has faith in Archer. That
I agree, and I think again, like Cisco, I think he had a tremendous amount of pressure on him. He was even a worse situation, in my opinion, than Cisco was, because he was like everybody else on Earth was kind of like sitting there watching the Super Bowl. Are you going to save us or not?
Yeah,
because there was no plan B. It was Enterprise was going to go out there, find the thing, destroy it, and that was the plan.
Were they in communication with Earth? I don't remember. There's so many.
No, because because one of the earlier on in the series they were dropping subspace communication buoys to try to boost the signal.
Yeah,
and because they were in this Delphic expanse, which we find out there was a whole subplot going on where these people from the future were trying to alter that section of space to make it habitable for them. So it was all weird and had all these kind of different things going on. So
Jeff's doubling down. He says that with that incident aside, he was one of the most honorable captains. Archer was. Right. He
I think he was trying to do the right thing, and I think he was under a tremendous amount of pressure.
I think so too.
And I think you saw it. He cracked a few times, and I think this is one of the episodes where he cracked a little bit. But he was determined, and to win, because he knew this was, and I think this was a Squid Game kind of thing. This was winner takes all. There's no second place. You know what I'm saying? This isn't like if he didn't get to that weapon and destroy it, that's the end of the human race.
That was it. We have no more Earth to go home to.
I mean, the colonies eventually their plan was to go find each colony and destroy them. It wasn't just Earth. They were going to go Earth, and then
they were going to annihilate. They were going to commit specieside against.
They were going to go from every colony they had, and of course, if they'd taken Earth off the map, then everybody else did. And you certainly know the Vulcans won't help. So
not at that stage of the game.
No. Yeah. So anyway, that's my theory on that one. I think Archer that's a good one, and I think he was justified. Although I hope that my feeling is that he did eventually go help those people, or sent somebody to help them.
I hope he did.
So anyway, all right, we're gonna move on. The last one, and I have two for Janeway. My initial one for Janeway was the very first episode, which was what the hell's the name of the pilot?
Homestead. No, what is the
name
of the pilot?
It's not. I can't think of it. But anyway, we know the plot. This keeper guy, caretaker. This caretaker guy goes and pulls them from the Alpha Quadrant to the was it Delta Quadrant? Is that where they were?
Yep.
And to help, I guess, the Kess that he was the Kess.
Was it Kess? I don't remember.
Anyway, the point is that at the end of it, basically partly through the episode, we realized that she has a choice. She can either stay and help the Kess and basically destroy this station that could have sent them back to the Delta Quadrant instantaneously, or not help the Kess, use the station to get back, and the Kess fall to their fate had they never arrived. I still say she should have done that. She should have just said, "Sorry, Kess, we're not here for you. We weren't, we're prime directing because we're not getting involved in your war or whatever.
Prime directing.
And we want to get our butts home." And the reason I say that is because, yes, it's Starfleet and they're supposed to help people, but she has a responsibility to her ship and her crew. And I think she failed in that.
Yeah.
She did not step up for her ship and her crew. So had she done that, that would have been the end of the show, and we wouldn't have had 7 more years.
But it was the pilot
of joyous Star Trek Voyager.
Of Ensign Kim being an ensign, yeah.
And
but she went on to make much
Ensign
worse
Kim.
Mistakes. One of them, I'm going to argue, was Scorpion Part 1.
That one,
right?
I don't remember what happened in that one specifically.
This is the one where she needs to cross Borg's. No, she needs to the Borg and Species 8472 are having it
Oh,
out.
okay.
Like,
I do
they're
know what you're
fighting,
talking about. Yeah.
and she needs to get through Borg space to get home. So she says,
Well-
"All right, you guys, you grant me passage, and I'm going to be an ally with you."
This is the
And then
enemy of
so
my enemy
species-
theory.
Yeah, the enemy of my enemy is
So
my.
yeah, she had a way to get
Species
rid of that
847.
species or help them
Yes.
beat that species.
So she tells them how to beat Species 8472 so that they can get home, thereby allowing the Borg to completely. It's specieside. It's genocide. They assimilate all of Species 8472, and
Who
she's
are
very
baddies anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
They're
So
pretty bad.
so put yourself in her shoes. Would you have made the enemy of my enemy?
Oh, that now she's thinking about her crew.
Yeah, now she's thinking about, all right, let's get these kids home.
I don't know. That one's a tough one. It is the enemy of my enemy. They had already had relations with the Borg prior to this.
They had.
This is when a lot of the Borg became even in TNG, they started to dumb down the Borg. We had the Hugh.
They were too formidable. We couldn't keep telling story. We couldn't keep the storytelling up with this.
Yeah, it was like they always. This is always the way is that they come up with this, big baddie, and then they kind of end up not being that bad, or end up aligning with them.
So many TV shows.
Yeah, it's kind of a thing. So
the baddie dumbs down.
I don't know. I can see her doing that because I was like, she's like, the hell with this other species. It's not like they were good. It's not like they were benevolent. They were evil too. So let them battle each other out. And if it helps me out, well, so be it. We'll deal with the fallout.
I guess. Yeah. I may have done it because you're right. You want to keep your two enemies occupied with each other. While you quietly
let them battle each other while you sneak by. That's
and we'll worry about dealing with you later on. Yeah, Chris is saying she desperately needed to keep a very low profile in Borg space, but she said she hung up a banner and said we're here. She did, but she got away with it. She got away with it.
So
I know you guys all thought we were going to pick Tuvix. And we
did have Tuvix on here. Tuvix is one of those ones that
Tuvix is one of those ones.
It's ones that's on here. I don't know why people get so wound. This is one of those ones where I get tired of this argument because I get tired of hearing about Tuvix arguments.
Everyone.
And I think here's the thing. I know that Tuvix as a person was okay with being Tuvix.
Yes.
But she couldn't go and ask.
Neelix and
Tuvok separately. Do you want to be this merged person, or do you want to separate?
Yeah, because
I think they would have said, "No, I want to be me."
Yeah.
So I think ultimately, I agree with her. She did the right decision because he was an accident, and even though, she murdered him, yes, but she saved them. So
yeah, she did. By then, they had the directive: seek out new life, and this technically.
But it wasn't really new life. It was an accident.
It was a new life form. It was an accident that created a new life form.
But is it though? Because could Tuvix replicate? Could he have children without another Tuvixette?
Yeah, but for all we know, the transporter would accidentally merge other people, and then we'd have another new life form.
Well, that's exactly what they did on Lower Deck. So you remember that whole series where people kept getting
exactly. They
actually called it being Tuvixed. So I this is why I just say, yeah, of course. About my opinion, when I saw it the first time, I was like, yeah, okay, of course she's crazy if she doesn't.
Yeah.
Like I get what the argument is.
You know what? People liked Tuvix. He was nice.
Yeah, he was.
He fit right in. He did his jobs. It's hard to destroy something that you get to know him. He was funny. He had.
But then the same thing is if she said, "Well, we're going to leave it as is," then she's essentially murdering Tuvox.
And then exactly. So murder the two or murder the one. She chose murder the one.
So she should. Yeah, it was the needs of the many.
It was tough. The scene where she takes him and she's marching him down, like that. It was tough. It was tough to watch.
No, it was a strong episode, but I don't think I would have made a different decision than her. So.
Any other Janeway? stuff. I only had the one for Janeway.
Well, we talked about 3 for Janeway.
Oh, we talked about 3 for Janeway. Okay.
We talked Scorpion. We talked about the
Caretaker.
the Caretaker, and Tuvix. So there's 3.
Okay.
So that we're pretty much at the end of the hour.
Yeah, we're pretty much in the hour. Picard did a few, guys. Don't think he gets away scot-free, but he
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of anything good one off the top of my head that he did.
What are
That
the
was.
ones
But
that
they
just-
always seem to have like the decision. Even if he had to make a tough decision, it really wasn't that tough.
For Picard, I wrote First Contact, the movie First Contact, which is when he gives into his need for revenge. He was ready to sacrifice the lives of his crew.
Right, and I even had the picture of that. We didn't really talk about it because that when he's like that was his. That wasn't really him making a bad decision. That was just him being obsessed and with killing. Like he didn't, his obvious issues with the board.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Captain Phil is having Paul Levinson on tomorrow at 4 to talk about Tom Cooper's Wisdom Weavers, the lives and thought of Harold Innis. And he also then starting on Friday, starting with his Friday night freeform, is the Prague Rock Marathon that'll go all night Friday, all the way through Saturday until 8 p.m. Saturday. Roy is going to have a very special episode on Thursday, April 24th. I don't believe he's doing anything this weekend, but he'll be back Thursday, April 24th, and he will do the classic film Fahrenheit 451. So that
is a good one.
Is a very good one. So tune into Roy's Tie-Dye Sci-Fi Thursday at 7.
Yep. So we're going to be off next week, guys. Even though I'm still going to be in Indiana, but I have to do some stuff that night, so just don't have time, unfortunately. But we'll be back the following week, so 2 weeks from tonight, with probably a top 10 something.
Probably a top 10 Star Trek something. We won't be doing. I know we talked about an Andor recap, but we will not be doing it until season 2 ends. So we'll do.
Yeah, we'll do it when it's over. I think that's the best.
Yeah.
So if you guys got ideas for Star Trek top 10 for this month, please post so we can come
Top
up
10
with it.
dumb comments from no, I'm kidding. From Mary Beth about Star Trek.
So anyway, okay. Well, that's it. We will see you in 2 weeks. Until then, always live long and prosper, and may the force be with you guys. Good night. So I can get to the thing.